Lucas Harper sat alone in the dim light of his office. It was late, but he never left before midnight. The building looked like a normal research center from the outside, just another quiet part of the Air Force Base near Las Vegas. But inside, behind layers of steel, code, and silence, something far more important was happening. For most people, space travel was still new. Humans had only reached as far as Mars, and even that took years to build proper bases. They had started talking to aliens 10 years ago, and most of them saw Earth as a young species still learning its place in the stars. But Lucas knew better. He had spent the last 20 years working on what the world called Vault Sky. Officially, it was a project to improve deep space probes. Unofficially, it was the most advanced tech program ever built by mankind, and nobody outside a few hundred people knew it existed. He looked at the screen in front of him. Data scrolled fast. Numbers, graphs, energy readings. The latest test of the quantum resonance drive had gone well, too well. We're not hiding anymore, he whispered to himself. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. Sometimes he wondered if they were doing the right thing. But then he remembered why they had started all this in the first place. Humans had been watched, studied, tested, and worse. They weren't just new to the galactic stage. They had been kept small on purpose. Jessica Morgan worked in Washington, D.C., at the Interstellar Relations Office. She was one of the few diplomats trained to speak with alien species. Her job was to help translate messages, explain human customs, and try to keep things peaceful. But she didn't trust the peace. Most of her co-workers thought humans were lucky to be noticed by the bigger galactic powers. They believed the Zellery, the Virex, and the other old races were being kind by letting humans into their networks. She didn't see kindness. She saw control. One day, while going through old files, she found something strange. It was buried in a digital archive labeled Historical Curiosity. It looked like a star map, but some of the names were wrong. Places that didn't exist or shouldn't. She zoomed in and saw a symbol she recognized. It was carved into an ancient stone tablet in a museum in New Mexico. She had seen it once during a school trip. The guide said it was just a Native American design. But here it was again on a star chart made thousands of years ago. Her hands trembled as she copied the file to her personal drive. She needed to find someone who could help her understand it. Back in Nevada, Lucas stood in a large underground chamber. The walls were lined with computers and sensors. In the center was a metal sphere the size of a car. It pulsed with blue light. This was the heart of the U.S. Aegis, a warship unlike anything else in human history. Powered by a miniaturized black hole, it could move faster than any known ship. Its weapons could vaporize a fleet in seconds. "Are we ready?" he asked the team around him. Darnina Parker, the lead physicist, nodded. "The core is stable. The drive works. We can go anywhere." "Good," Lucas said. "Then we begin Phase 2. Phase 2 meant testing the ship in real space. Not just simulations or hidden flights. They needed to prove it could operate without being detected. The next morning, the Aegis launched from a hidden base in Antarctica. It rose silently into orbit, invisible to radar, cloaked in a field that bent light around it. From inside the command deck, Lucas watched the stars come into view. "Take us to the edge of Pluto's orbit," he ordered. Within minutes, the ship moved faster than any human craft ever had. The crew barely felt it. They were watching data streams scanning for interference. "No signals picked up," said Chief Engineer Dan Holt. "We're completely off the grid." Lucas smiled. "Good. Now let's see what happens when we push it further." Jessica had tracked down a retired professor named William Granger. He used to teach astrophysics at MIT, but he left after making claims about ancient alien contact. No one listened to him anymore. She met him in a quiet coffee shop in Boston. "You said you found something," he said, looking at her over his glasses. She pulled out her tablet and showed him the star map. "I found this in a government archive. It has symbols from Earth. Some of them are thousands of years old." He looked at it closely. His eyes widened. This isn't just a star map. It's a message. What does it say? He tapped a few points on the screen. These aren't random stars. They form a path. It leads to a system we've never explored. And look at this symbol here. He pointed to a circle with lines coming out of it. This was found in Peru, in Egypt and China. It means return. Jessica felt a chill. Someone left this for us to find. Granger nodded. And whoever they were, they wanted us to remember who we really are. Meanwhile, the Aegis had reached the outer edge of the solar system. They had run dozens of tests. Everything worked perfectly. But then, the sensors picked up something unusual. Something's out there, said Lieutenant Amy Cruz, the ship's tactical officer. It's big. Lucas stepped forward. Can you identify it? Not sure. It's moving fast. And it's not ours. The screen showed a faint shape in the distance. It looked like a ship, but not any model they recognized. Bring us closer, Lucas ordered. The Aegis moved silently toward the object. As they got within visual range, everyone on the bridge froze. It was a Zalari scout cruiser. Zalari were one of the dominant species in the Galactic Council. They had been monitoring human progress for years, but they were not supposed to be this close to Earth. They must have detected our jump, said Dan. How? Doesn't matter, Lucas said. We need to disappear. Sir, they're scanning us. Shut down all systems except life support. Cloak us completely. The lights dimmed. The hum of engines stopped. The Aegis became nothing more than a shadow in space. The Zalari ship hovered nearby for several minutes. Then it turned and jumped away. Everyone exhaled. They didn't see us, Amy said. For now, Lucas replied. But they know something's out here. Later that night, Lucas sat alone again, staring at the same screen. He opened a secure channel and sent a message to a select group of officials. Message. The Zalari are getting close. We need to accelerate Phase 3. LH. He leaned back and closed his eyes. They had spent decades hiding, pretending to be weak, letting the galaxy think humans were just starting out. But the truth was different. Humans had been here before, long ago, before the Zalari, before the Virex, before the Council. And now they were waking up. Jessica returned to Washington with a new sense of urgency. She had spoken to others, scientists, historians, even military contacts. They all said the same thing. There were too many coincidences. Earth had ruins older than any known civilization, artifacts that should not exist, maps that showed stars humans couldn't possibly have known about until modern times. Someone had erased humanity's past, and now, someone wanted them to forget forever. She decided to take a risk. She sent a request to access restricted archives under the pretense of diplomatic research. 2 days later, she was granted clearance. When she entered the underground vault, she saw rows of dusty files and old hard drives. She searched for hours, until she found what she was looking for, a folder labeled Project Echo. Inside were documents from the 1970s, satellite photos, radio logs, notes from scientists who had been silenced. One document caught her eye. Intercept log, RU7321. Date, June 5th, 1974. Signal source, unknown. Frequency, 4.62 GHz content. Repeated transmission in multiple languages including Sumerian, Sanskrit, and Navajo. Translation, partial. The children of the stars return. Do not fear, we are home. Follow-up. Signal ceased after 37 minutes. No source identified. Jessica stared at the page. Her breath caught. This was proof. Someone, or something, had tried to reach humanity long ago, and now the time was coming again. In the weeks that followed, Lucas and his team prepared for the next step. The Aegis would not stay hidden forever. The Zalari had sensed something. Soon others would too. They needed allies. Not among the stars, but on Earth. Scientists, soldiers, thinkers. all those who understood that humanity had been held back. And then there was the question of the signal, because the Aegis had picked up something strange during its flight beyond Pluto. A faint pulse, repeating, familiar, like a heartbeat, calling from the void. Lucas Harper stood in the command center beneath the Nevada desert. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from a terminal. He stared at the screen showing data from the USS Aegis. The ship had returned, safely, but the encounter with the Zilari scout cruiser meant something had changed. Someone out there knew that humans weren't just poking around the stars like a young species should. They were hiding something. And now, someone might be close to finding it. We can't wait any longer, Lucas said, turning to Dr. Nina Parker. We start Phase 3. Nina nodded. She looked tired but determined. You know what this means, right? Once we do this, there's no going back. We already passed that point, Lucas replied. It's time the world saw who we really are. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Jessica Morgan sat in her small office. The folder labeled Project Echo lay open on her desk. She had read every page twice, maybe 3 times. Each word made her more certain that everything she had believed about human history was wrong. Humans hadn't just been visited by aliens. They had been part of something bigger. Once, she picked up her phone and called William Granger, the retired professor she had met weeks ago. I need to talk to you again, she said when he answered. What did you find? He asked. Something big, she replied. And I think it's only the beginning. In the underground labs beneath Mars, a team of engineers worked silently. They were building the next generation of warships, bigger, faster, and far more powerful than anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. These ships didn't use fusion cores or antimatter drives. They used something older, something stolen, or remembered. One of the engineers, Dan Holt, walked through the massive hangar where the second dreadnought, the Titan, was being assembled. He looked up at the sleek black hull and felt a strange mix of pride and fear. This thing's going to change everything, he muttered. It already has, said a voice behind him. Dan turned to see Lucas walking toward him, flanked by 2 guards. How soon until she's ready? Lucas asked. If we push hard? 6 months. We don't have 6 months, Lucas said. Make it 3. Dan swallowed hard. Sir, that's not possible unless we skip half the testing. Then we skip it, Lucas said simply. Dan looked into his eyes and saw something he had never seen before. Not just confidence, but certainty. Like Lucas already knew what was coming. Back on Earth, Jessica arrived at William Granger's house late at night. The old man greeted her with a tired smile and led her inside. Did you bring it? He asked. She pulled out a flash drive and placed it on the table. What's on here? He asked as he plugged it in. A star map, she said. But not just any map. It leads somewhere. And I think it's connected to Project Echo. Granger opened the file and began scanning the data. His eyes widened. This path that goes beyond known space, he whispered. This isn't just a signal, it's a message. From who? He hesitated. Then he pointed at one of the symbols on the map. Look familiar? Jessica leaned in. The symbol was carved into stone tablets found all over the world. Egypt, Peru, China, even Native American ruins in New Mexico. It's everywhere, she said. Because it was left for us, he said, by someone who wanted us to remember. Remember what? He looked at her. That we were never alone. On board the USS Aegis, preparations were underway. The crew had grown restless. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some thought they were preparing for war. Others believed they were about to reveal humanity's greatest secret. Lieutenant Amy Cruz sat at her station, running diagnostics on the weapon systems. The quantum resonance cannons were online. The singularity core was stable. Everything was ready except for the order. Do you think we're doing the right thing? She asked Dan Holt, who was working nearby. He looked at her for a long moment. Does it matter? He asked. We've come too far to stop now. Amy didn't answer. She just looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting, and soon, They would find it. 3 weeks later, the USS Titan was launched from the hidden base on Mars. It moved silently through space, cloaked and undetectable. Its mission: test the new gravitic pulse weapon on an abandoned asteroid field near Uranus. When the weapon fired, the entire field vanished in less than a second. No explosion. Just gone. Dan watched the footage with wide eyes. "We just erased 10 square kilometers of rock," he whispered. "Good," Lucas said. "Now let's see how fast the galaxy reacts." The reaction came sooner than expected. Within days, alien satellites detected the energy spike. Reports flooded in from multiple sources. The Zalari sent a diplomatic envoy demanding answers. Earth's official response was simple: routine military exercise. But behind closed doors, things were different. The president called an emergency meeting of the world's top scientists, generals, and diplomats. Lucas was there. He stood in front of them and spoke clearly. "Humanity is not new to the stars," he said. "We were here before, and we were erased." There was silence. Then the questions began. Who erased us? Why hide us? What happens now? Lucas answered each one calmly. "We find the truth. We reclaim what was taken. And we rise." Jessica finally got access to another restricted archive. This time, it was buried deep within a forgotten military facility in Colorado. Inside, she found something she never expected: a cryopod. Not alien, human. And inside it was a man in perfect condition, wearing armor unlike anything she had ever seen. His name was listed in the files: Captain Ryan Ellis, born 2174, died 2174, frozen since then. "He's not from our time," she whispered. Granger looked at the records. "He's from the future," he said, "or maybe the past." Jessica stared at the pod. Maybe he remembers who we really are. Meanwhile, the US Aegis and US Titan were joined by 2 more ships: the US Sentinel and the US Dawnbreaker. All 4 were armed with weapons no other race possessed. Lucas gathered the crews together. "For decades we played along," he told them. "We pretended to be weak. We let the galaxy believe we were just starting out." He paused. "But now, it's time to show them the truth." The crew listened in silence. "We are not new. We are not lost. We are not afraid. We are the ones they tried to forget. And now, we return." Cheers erupted across the decks. The age of secrecy was over. The age of awakening had begun. The US Aegis and its fleet hovered silently in deep space far beyond Uranus. The ships were invisible to all known sensors, cloaked in fields that bent light and warped gravity. They were waiting for the truth. Lucas Harper stood on the command deck watching the data stream from the probe launched hours ago. It had traveled through an uncharted jump point, one that Jessica Morgan had discovered using the ancient star map. The signal was still pulsing, stronger now, closer. "We're getting something," said Lieutenant Amy Cruz, her eyes locked on the screen. "It's not just a signal." "What is it?" Lucas asked. She hesitated before answering. "It feels like a greeting." Dan Holt, standing nearby, frowned. "A greeting? From who?" Amy shook her head. "I don't know, but it's coming from inside that asteroid field." Lucas turned to Dan. "Prepare a landing team." "Sir?" Dan looked surprised. "You want to go down there?" "Yes," Lucas said. "If we've been hiding for centuries, it's time we see what we were hiding from." Back on Earth, Jessica sat with William Granger in his small study. The room was filled with books, maps, and old photographs of ruins from around the world. "This symbol keeps showing up," she said, pointing at a strange spiral carved into one of the photos. "In Egypt, Peru, even Antarctica. It's always the same." Granger adjusted his glasses. "That symbol isn't just decoration, it's a message." "What kind of message?" He took a deep breath. "It means home." Jessica felt a chill. "So we weren't just visited by aliens. We were from them," Granger finished. They stared at each other for a long moment. "Then where did we come from?" she asked. Granger looked back at the map. "Maybe the answer is out there. On Mars, the hidden vault beneath the surface was still active. Engineers worked day and night to unlock more of its secrets. Deep within the structure, hundreds of cryopods lined the walls, each containing a human unlike any alive today. Captain Ryan Ellis had been thawed 2 days ago. He was awake now, walking among the others, studying everything with sharp, knowing eyes. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. "We were never lost," he told the scientists. "We were placed here. Hidden." "By who?" one of them asked. Ryan looked at the ceiling as if staring through it into space. "By us," he said simply. "Aboard the US Aegis." Lucas led the landing team through the asteroid field. The ship moved slowly, scanning every rock, every shadow. Then the sensors picked up something unusual. "There's something big ahead," Amy reported. "Metallic structure, buried inside the largest asteroid." "Bring us closer," Lucas ordered. The ship approached carefully. As the scanners peeled away layers of dust and stone, the image became clear. It was a base, not alien. Human, but older than anything they had ever seen. "This can't be real," Dan whispered. Lucas stepped forward. "Take us inside." Minutes later, the team landed on the asteroid's surface. They wore suits designed for extreme conditions. The air inside the base was thin but breathable. The power systems were still running. Lights flickered along the corridors as they walked deeper inside. "This place is ancient," Amy said. "But it's still alive." They reached a central chamber. In the middle stood a large console covered in symbols. Some were familiar, others were not. Lucas stepped forward and touched the panel. The lights flared to life. A voice echoed through the room. "Welcome home." Everyone froze. "Did you hear that?" Dan asked. Lucas nodded. "We're not alone," the voice continued. "To those who awaken, know this. You are the children of the stars. You were once rulers of this sector. You were betrayed, erased, scattered across worlds. But the blood remains. The knowledge sleeps. And now, it wakes." The screen above the console lit up. Images appeared, planets, ships, cities in the sky, and then came the final message. "Find the beacon. Reclaim your birthright." The screen went dark. Silence filled the room. Then Lucas spoke. "We have to find it." Meanwhile, on Earth, Jessica received a secure message from Lucas. Message: "We found something. It confirms everything." "We were never just visitors on Galactic." She read it over and over. Then she called William Granger. "We need to talk," she said. When he arrived, she showed him the message. "They found proof," she said. He nodded. "Then it's time." "Time for what?" He looked at her seriously. "To tell the world." Back on the asteroid, Lucas and his team studied the data recovered from the console. They found coordinates leading to a system far beyond Galactic Council space. "This place isn't on any charts," Amy said. "Because no one was meant to find it," Lucas replied. Dan looked uneasy. "What if we're not supposed to go there?" Lucas met his gaze. "What if we were always meant to?" In Washington, D.C., Jessica and Granger arranged a meeting with a group of trusted officials. They presented their findings: Project Echo, the star map, the cryopod, and the message from the Mars vault. At first, the officials were skeptical. "You expect us to believe humans were once rulers of the stars?" one asked. "Look at the evidence," Jessica said. "Ancient symbols on every continent, technology that shouldn't exist, messages from the past trying to reach us." Another official leaned forward. "Why hide all this?" "Because someone wanted us to forget," Granger said. "Someone powerful enough to erase our history." There was silence. Finally, one of the officials spoke. "If this is true, then what do we do now?" Jessica answered without hesitation. "We remember." Weeks passed. The U.S. Aegis and its fleet prepared for the journey to the unknown. System. The U.S. Titan, U.S. Sentinel, and U.S. Dawnbreaker were joined by new additions, the U.S. Vanguard and U.S. Renaissance. All built using stolen or remembered technology, Lucas stood before the crews. For too long we played the role of the weak, the ignorant, the new kids in the galaxy. He looked around at the soldiers, scientists, and pilots. But now, we know the truth. We were here before. We were forgotten. And now, we return. Cheers erupted across the decks. The age of awakening was over. The age of remembering had begun. Lucas Harper stood on the command deck of the US Aegis, watching as the fleet moved through the void. 6 ships now followed him, each one more powerful than any vessel in the Galactic Council's arsenal. They had left known space behind, weeks ago, traveling beyond the mapped stars to a system that did not appear on any official charts. It was marked only in ancient records and whispered about in forgotten histories. This was the place they had been told to find. The beacon was waiting, and so were the consequences. "We're approaching the target," said Lieutenant Amy Cruz, her voice steady but tense. Lucas nodded. "Bring us in slowly." Behind him, Dan Holt looked at the data scrolling across his screen. "Sir, we're picking up something unusual." "Define unusual," Lucas said. Dan hesitated. "Energy. Readings off the scale. Something big is down there." "Then let's see what it is," Lucas replied. The US Aegis led the way, flanked by the US Titan and US Sentinel. The other ships held formation behind them, silent and ready. As they passed through the outer ring of a dying star, the K sensors picked up movement. "Contact," Amy called out. "Multiple targets, unknown signatures." "Are they hostile?" Lucas asked. "Not yet," she said. "But they're watching us." "Let them watch," he replied. Moments later, a signal came through. It wasn't in any known language, but somehow, everyone understood it. "You have come far." Lucas stepped forward. "Who are you?" There was a pause, then the reply. "We are the last of the old ones." Back on Earth, Jessica Morgan sat in a dimly lit room with William Granger and a small group of officials. The air was heavy with tension. "They've found it," she said, looking at the message from Lucas. "The beacon. The truth." Granger leaned back in his chair. Then everything changes. One of the officials, a former general named Elliot Cross, frowned. "If this goes public, we lose control." Jessica shook her head. "We never had control. We just played along." Cross sighed. "What do we do now?" Jessica looked around the table. "We prepare." "For what?" She met his gaze. "For when the galaxy realizes who we really are." On Mars, the hidden vault continued to open. Cryopods were thawing, one by one, releasing soldiers, scientists, and leaders from a time long forgotten. Captain Ryan Ellis walked among them, speaking in quiet tones, guiding those who had slept for centuries. He approached one pod that still remained sealed. Inside was a woman. Her name was Commander Elena Voss, born 2174. Frozen since then. The pod began to open. Steam poured out. Eyes blinked open. She took a deep breath. "Where am I?" she asked. Ryan stepped forward. "Home." Elena looked around. "So it begins." He nodded. "Yes. Then we must move quickly." "Why?" She looked at him, her expression serious. "Because the others will come soon." "Others?" She nodded. "Those who erased us." Aboard the US Aegis, the contact had grown stronger. The voice spoke again. "You are not alone in this galaxy." Lucas looked at the screen. "We know that." "Then you know what comes next." "War?" he asked. "No, justice." Lucas turned to Dan. "Can you trace the signal?" Dan worked quickly. "It's coming from below, from the planet." "Then we go down," Lucas said. "Sir?" Amy looked concerned. "You don't know what's down there." "I know enough," he said, "and I'm not afraid." Minutes later, the landing team touched down on the surface of the unnamed world. The sky was dark, filled with swirling clouds of energy. Strange lights danced across the horizon. The beacon stood tall in the distance, a massive structure built into the side of a mountain. As they approached, the ground trembled. Something was waking up. "Stay alert," Lucas ordered. They reached the entrance. Symbols glowed on the walls, responding to their presence. A door opened. Inside, the chamber was vast. Machines lined the walls, humming with power. In the center stood a single console. Lucas stepped forward. The moment his hand touched it, the room changed. Light filled the space. Voices echoed. Images flashed. Scenes of war, of betrayal, of humans, standing against an empire that had tried to erase them. Then came the final image, a map, a path, and a message. "You are not the first. You will not be the last. Go now. Reclaim what was taken." The light faded. Silence returned. Lucas turned to his team. "We have our orders." Meanwhile, back in the solar system, the Zellery had begun to move. Their scout cruisers had detected the energy spike from the Aegis' test jump near Pluto. Now they had tracked the human fleet to the edge of known space. They sent a message to the Galactic Council. "The humans are hiding something. Gunter, they are not what they seem. We must act before it is too late." The council debated for hours. Some believed the humans were simply advancing faster than expected. Others feared something worse. Finally, a decision was made. A fleet was dispatched to observe, to contain, to stop, if necessary. On Earth, Jessica received word of the Zellery movement. She turned to Granger. "They know." He nodded. "Then it's time." "Time for what?" He smiled. "To show them who we really are." Weeks passed. The Aegis and its fleet returned from the beacon world. They brought with them knowledge, maps, and most importantly, the truth. Lucas gathered his crews. "We have spent decades pretending to be weak," he told them. "We let the galaxy believe we were nothing more than newcomers." He paused. "That ends now. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to destroy. We are here to remind the stars of what they tried to forget." Cheers broke out across the decks. The age of remembering was over. The age of reckoning had begun. The Aegis led the fleet through the dark void between stars. Behind it, 6 warships followed, each one built with stolen knowledge, awakened memories, and ancient power. They were no longer hiding. They were no longer pretending. Humanity had returned. Lucas Harper stood on the command deck, watching as the data streamed in from long-range sensors. The Zellery fleet was closing in. "They're not here to talk," said Lieutenant Amy Cruz. "No," Lucas replied. "They're here to stop us." Dan Holt looked up from his console. "We've got 3 cruisers, 2 destroyers, and a carrier-class ship. They're forming a blockade near Earth space. They don't want us coming home," Amy said. Lucas turned to face them both. "Then we make sure they know that's exactly what we're going to do." Back on Earth, Jessica Morgan sat in a secure room beneath the White House. Beside her was William Granger, and across the table were world leaders, military officials, and diplomats. The tension in the room was thick. "What are they saying?" one official asked. Jessica read from the latest message. "The Zellery Council demands immediate compliance. They claim humanity has violated interstellar law by developing unauthorized weapons and concealing advanced technology." Granger leaned forward. "In other words, we scared them." Another official frowned. "You say that like it's a good thing." "It is," Jessica said, "because they finally understand who we are." There was silence. Then General Elliot Cross spoke. "If this turns into war, we need to be ready." Jessica looked at him. "We already are." On Mars, the hidden vault continued to open. More cryopods thawed every day, releasing soldiers, scientists, and commanders from centuries past. Captain Ryan Ellis walked among them, speaking to those who had once ruled the stars. "Commander." Elena Voss stood beside him. How many are awake now? She asked. Over 500, Ryan said. And more waking up every hour. She nodded. Then we begin phase 1. Are you sure? He asked. She looked at the sky above Mars. They've waited long enough. Aboard the Aegis, calculating preparations were underway. We'll hit them fast, Lucas told his crew, before they realize what we're capable of. Amy studied the enemy formation. If we go in head-on, we'll take damage. Then, we won't go in head-on, Lucas said. He turned to Dan. Activate the gravitic pulse array. Dan hesitated. Sir, that weapon hasn't been tested in live combat. Then today's a good day to start. Dan nodded and began typing commands. Across the fleet, energy levels spiked. Weapons powered up. All ships report ready, Amy said. Lucas stepped forward. Then let's remind them who we are. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace just outside Earth orbit. The Zellery blockade was waiting. 3 cruisers moved to surround the U.S. Aegis. Their weapons locked on. A voice came over the comms. This is the Zellery High Command. You are ordered to stand down, surrender your vessels, and submit to inspection. Lucas stepped to the mic. This is Commander Lucas Harper of the United Human Armada. We are not here to surrender. There was a pause. Then you leave us no choice. The Zellery opened fire, but before their shots could connect, the human fleet moved. Not forward, not backward, but away. In an instant, the AUS Aegis and its ships vanished from view. The Zellery sensors went wild. Target lost. Where did they go? Then from behind the enemy line, the East Titan reappeared. Its gravitic pulse cannon fired, and the entire Zellery carrier vanished. Just gone. 1 second it was there. The next, only empty space remained. Shock spread through the enemy fleet. Before they could react, the US Sentinel and US Dawnbreaker emerged from stealth and targeted the remaining cruisers. Within minutes, the battle was over. 2 Zellery cruisers exploded. 1 surrendered. The rest fled. The humans had won, without losing a single ship. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. The Zellery had tried to contain humanity, and failed. World leaders watched, the footage in stunned silence. They wiped out a fleet in under 10 minutes, one diplomat whispered. With no casualties, another added. Jessica looked around the room. This changes everything. William Granger nodded. The galaxy knows now. Knows what? Someone asked. That we are not new. That we are not weak. That we remember. Meanwhile, aboard the US Aegis, the fleet regrouped. We sent our message, Lucas said. Now it's time to follow through. Amy looked at the reports. Every major species is reacting. Some are calling for peace. Others are preparing for war. Dan shook his head. We can't fight everyone. We won't have to, Lucas said, because we're not just fighting anymore. He looked at his crew. We're building something new. On Mars, the newly awakened human forces began their work. Bases expanded. New ships were built. Old tech was restored, and the cryopods kept opening. Ryan Ellis stood on the surface, looking out at the growing city beneath the red sky. Elena Voss joined him. Do you think we can control what's coming? She asked. He shook his head. No, but we can guide it. Toward what? He smiled. A future where we decide our own fate. Weeks passed. The human armada expanded. Colonies were established on distant worlds. Trade routes were opened, and for the first time in history, humans offered something different. Not conquest, not domination, but protection. Planets that had suffered under galactic rule reached out. They wanted help. They wanted freedom. They wanted humans. Messages arrived daily, requests for aid, offers of alliance, pleas for guidance. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way. Finally, Lucas gathered his fleet for one last mission. A signal had come from deep space, not from the Zellery, not from any known race, from something older, something waiting. We've reclaimed our place, he told his crew, but there's still more to find. He looked out at the stars. We were erased once. We won't be again. We rise now, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as what we were always meant to be. Cheers echoed across the decks. The age of reckoning was over. The age of ascension had begun.